So why do you think it's not like a better known term? Because like I like to consider myself, at least in my own head, to be like fairly up to date on even like weird things like this that happen in the world, like little obscure things, or like I like to consider myself well informed, and I had never heard the term until last year. Why do you think it is that it's sort of not very well known?
And you're talking about the term cyber torture?
Yeah, cyber torture, or just really any of the terms that you kind of listed or used. I just focus on that one specifically because that's yeah, that's one of the terms that Niels Meltzer uses. But like organized harassment or any of the terms that you used there, I had really like just I'd never heard them until last year. Even in relation to the case of Julian Assange, I'd never heard it. I'd say I'd seen posts about him being like being tortured essentially, but like it was never linked to those terms.
Right. So the term cyber torture I'll address first because that's easy. None of us were actually calling it cyber torture until Niels Meltzer came out with his report. And because he came out with his report and he did use that terminology, which does seem to kind of cover everything. Well, there's the one-on-one involvement with the stalkers that you go through that's not cyber at all. That's happening in real time in people's lives. But it is a good term because so much of it starts online and lives online and depends on the technology. So I think that's why he came up with that term because it kind of broadly covers everything. But none of us were using that term. Nobody that I knew was using that term. But since he has come out with that term, we are happy to embrace that terminology. So that's why that term. In terms of organized stalking, the other terminologies are gang stalking, covert harassment, organized harassment. I'm not sure. I do know that occasionally, about every 2 or 3 years, a magazine will come out and totally debunk that this is existing and say that everybody's paranoid, delusional, and that there's this mass paranoid delusion going on. And if you know anything about the CIA, I'm not saying the CIA is behind that, but it is a tactic. Let's put it that way. It is a tactic to keep to suppress the stories, to suppress people's testimonies, to debunk that this is going on. But I will say that there was a psychologist who was widely featured in one of those articles who has changed his tune, and he came out with a report. Can't remember the guy's name, unfortunately, but he came out with a report about 6 months ago saying that he'd been contacted by so many people that he now realizes that he was wrong in saying that this was paranoid delusion.
Mm.
So, I think there's that. It's really hard to say. I know that I talk to people about it. We give out brochures, we hand out flyers, and you're right. Very few people have heard of it. So I don't know, but I do know that right now it is becoming better known. It used to be that I never met anybody who had heard of it. And now my sister knows another person undergoing this. The temple that I attend, probably 3 or 4 people have friends or relatives that are undergoing this organized harassment. So it's coming to the surface slowly but surely. And of course, for us, it can't come to the surface fast enough just because, the suffering is unbelievable. The calls I take, you just can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's got to make you feel like you're just losing your mind. I guess it's uh, I honestly can't imagine what it must be like yeah, it's a really shocking phenomenon that I don't think has a I don't think there's really like an equivalent in history. I've spoken to people talking about that it's perhaps similar to MK Ultra in that it was just like performed on random citizens. Um, but even that, like it wasn't of the scale, at least from what I can tell of what this is. But so you compiled a report for Niels Meltzer in the UN. You put together some work for them. What was in that? Yeah, was there anything new that you discovered whilst you were compiling it, or was that more like a formality for you at that point, just to sort of like bring everything together?
Yeah, the latter for sure, because we had been, at that point, we had been presenting to so many politicians, district attorneys, et cetera, as I mentioned. And we were actually, right before COVID, starting to form a coalition with other organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, people like that. COVID has kind of slowed us down. But yeah, so we had the material. We just pulled it together in a particular way according to what he asked for. And we were really thrilled that our organization begins with an A because we're on the top of his list online. We were really happy about that.
You've just only got what, aardvarks and abracadabra above you.
Yeah, I think you're right. Aardvarks for sure would be ahead of us. But I've been blessed because up here in the Bay Area, we have so many talented people. So one of the people that I work with, Byron, he does statistical analysis. So even though it's really hard to gather statistics on these crimes, we gathered what we could, and he pulled together a really great report. And by the way, all of this can be downloaded from the UN website. And if you don't have the links, they are on our website at advocacyforhumankind.com. Huge name. But yeah, so we had asked, because we had submitted a bill proposal to one of our local senators. We had collected testimonies from people. We wanted it just to be from California, but it ended up being from all across the United States. We got tons of responses, but we only edited and compiled 90 because those were the ones from California. So we submitted those ones, redacted for the names and the addresses and all of that, because we only had permission to really submit them to the senators. So we didn't want to go through and request, so we redacted the names and everything. And then we have a really good description of the crimes. And then we have Byron's statistical analysis. And then we also added a few reports from the ACLU. I'm going to mention one of those reports right now in case people are interested. There is a report by the ACLU called Trapped in a Black Box. If you put that into your Google, it will come up. You can download the PDF. This is about watch lists in the United States. And it's all very interesting to read how many people are being put on watch lists. And this goes back to government involvement again. But there are pages 30 to 33 talk about hidden watch lists, which is basically a person can be put on a watch list. It doesn't have to be any criteria whatsoever, because these lists are kind of clandestine, and only the people who apparently are running those programs know. So basically, you could be put on for no reason at all. There's no criteria, no accountability. So the ACLU is also another organization that is really looking into these crimes, but they are doing it in their own way, just like Nils Melzer. He cannot come out and publicly say everything he's doing, because this requires a lot of underground investigation. And we're certain that he's continuing his work on this. But the ACLU has consistently, over the last 10 years, been putting out reports here and there that indicate to us that they are also working on uncovering these crimes or investigating them.
Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast and to our mailing list. And don't forget, my book, Brexit, The Establishment Civil War, is now available for pre-order on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description below. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.